Hey guys, it's QuickyBaby and welcome back to World of Tanks, and today I'm going to be giving you a full review of a little part of World of Tanks history, the Tier 7 premium Chinese light tank, the Type 62. The Type 62 was first available in the World of Tanks gift shop in August 2012. It was the second ever Chinese tank in the game, and it even predates the Chinese tech tree that was added later in December in patch 8.2. When the Type 62 was introduced into the game, it was very novel, the first high-tier premium light tank that made a huge amount of credits, and so it was a joy for everyone who liked to play light tanks and still wanted to make some money at the same time. However, a lot of things change in 3 years, and now the Type 62 has a brother to contend with, the Type 64, which is a Tier 6 Chinese premium light tank, as well as the AMX 1357, an equal-tier Tier 7 French premium light tank. So while the Type 62 is no longer the only high-tier premium light tank in the game, it still has a few tricks up its sleeve, as I will be showing you in this video. So when the Type 62 first entered the game as a Tier 6 Chinese light tank back in August 2012, there was nothing like it in the game. Then 4 months later, in patch 8.2, when Wargaming wanted to introduce the whole of the new Chinese tech tree, they bumped it up to Tier 7 and a lot about the vehicle changed. Its top speed was buffed from 50 to 60 kilometers an hour. The accuracy of its 85mm gun was also buffed, and the alpha damage was increased from 160 to 180, as well as the penetration increasing from 130 to 145, as well as its hit points increasing from 690 to 880. So why did they make these changes, you might be asking? Well, that's because the vehicle is very similar to a Tier 7 regular light tank they introduced in the game, the WZ-131. And so if you're already familiar with this vehicle, then you'll know a lot about the Type 62. So let's just quickly run down the differences. So here we have the Type 62 on the left and a WZ-131 using a 100mm gun in the center and using an 85mm gun on the right. And just for reference, the Type 62 uses the 85mm variant weapon of the WZ-131. So DPM-wise, the Type 62 has more DPM than if you choose to use the 100mm, but less than if you choose to use the same 85mm on the WZ-131. The penetration is also 145 compared to the 159 of the 85mm and 181 of the 100mm. The alpha damage is also less using this 85mm weapon compared to that on the WZ-131 of 200. But unfortunately, the rate of fire is the same, which is why there is this DPM disparity. Aim time wise, it's the same, accuracy the same, dispersion's the same, apart from slightly better turret dispersion, but that's counteracted by more dispersion after you fire the weapon. Now, interestingly enough, the Type 62 is also less mobile than the WZ-131, with less horsepower to ton, as while the vehicle weighs exactly the same, the engine power is 430 rather than 520. Now, the ground resistances are slightly better, which helps to make up for this difference in power to weight ratio, but the WZ-131 is still going to be slightly more mobile than a Type 62. Armor-wise, the vehicles are completely the same, but the health of the engine on the Type 62 is much worse than on the 131, so just hope that you're not going to get hit too much. And so a lot of you might be disappointed to hear that the Type 62 is basically just a cut-down version of a WZ-131. And so if you don't fancy paying the retail price for this vehicle, then you can get a more competitive tank for 1.35 million credits in-game. But there are aspects the WZ-131 cannot compete with the Type 62, and that is in the crew training. For me personally, I thoroughly enjoy playing the WZ-132, the Tier 8 Chinese light tank. And as the Type 62 is a premium vehicle, I can use my crew in it to accelerate their crew training and gain all of the benefits that I already have with the WZ-132. And furthermore, as a premium vehicle, this thing makes tons of credits, as we're going to see as we get stuck into some gameplay. So first up, we have Jason123, and he is in a rather stinky matchup. He is the only Tier 7 tank in this entire game. Ouch. But then again, light tanks get matched up like a higher tier medium or heavy or tank destroyer. So you've got to imagine your matchmaking to be the same as, say, a Pershing, you know, a Tier 8 medium tank. And also, when there are higher tier opponents on the enemy team, then you've got more opportunity to get more experience and more credits. So, Jason is making a pretty bold play here on Tundra. He's deciding to take the hill. There are quite a few tanks on the enemy team that I think he possibly could have been a little bit afraid of there. You know, the 5120, the Leopard prototype, the Lorraine, the Type 61, even the Centurion could have probably managed to sneak some shots in there. But thankfully, he made it up without taking a single hit. And when you've got 880 hit points and you're having to deal with Tier 9 and Tier 10 tanks, 1 or 2 shots and you're pretty much out of the game. Luckily, however, he does have a lot of people coming to back him up. So now with some support, I feel like Jason is more comfortable in his position and he can start to progress. I love using these ridgelines up here. From these ridgelines up here, what you can do is you can get spots down into artillery that sometimes don't get themselves behind the bushes here. You can also spot tanks that are trying to make their way up here and even get some spots and even some shots on players that like to sit up in this corner. So Jason's just put a couple of rounds into a Jagdtiger. Doesn't look like it went too well for that Jagdtiger as he finishes him off with a rather effective fire there. Batchat on his team has taken a good amount of hits from a T-110E3 below, but Jason, riding his luck, decides to go back up and try and get some more flanking fire in. And from this position, you can afford to be quite cheeky. We can clearly see that Jason also has Sixth Sense, so he knows when he's being too cheeky. As his commander alerts him, hey, maybe it's time to pull back, buddy. And so he does. And now he falls back into this slightly further south ridgeline, and he proceeds to get even more shots into his opponents. Check out the rate of fire on this 85mm. Fair enough, the alpha damage might only be 180 compared to the 200 the WZ-132 gets. Sorry, 131 gets on the 85mm. But once you put enough shots into your opponents, it really starts to add up in damage. That's 2 into the Lorraine. 3 into the Lorraine, rolling for exactly average. And now he manages to pull off a shot right through the train tracks there. If it is a train tracks, probably just a bridge actually. Not a train track. This is an Ensk. Get it right, scrub baby. But he puts another round into the back of the Lorraine, and when you're firing into the side and the back of tanks, as much as this, then things go well for you as he gets his second fire of the game, finishing off another Tier 9 vehicle. So that's already 2 tanks taken out that are 2 tiers higher than him. And now he is using the heat ammunition on this vehicle to go to town on these Tier 10 very heavily armored tanks, the T-110E3 and the E-100. The heat rounds on this tank have got 220mm of penetration, which is much more suited to going through these heavily armored vehicles than the 145mm of penetration on the standard rounds. Really, in this vehicle, you do want to take a good helping of heat rounds, but when you do get into a tricky matchup like this, and even once you've got the side of an E-100, you're still going to struggle to be able to get through his side with the AP ammunition. But these heat rounds are going through it pretty darn consistently here. And this is what you need to do in your light tanks, especially the Type 62. As we see one bounce off there, the E-100 barely angling his turret, but this 220 pen unable to go through it. When you're playing your light tanks, you have to get the sides of your opponents. Try and support your allies. What Jason did there very well is noticed that those vehicles were heavily engaged with what was in front of them. And quite often, vehicles just brush aside a light tank. They go, oh, what am I going to be more concerned about? You know, the T-57 Heavy that might be in front of me, even though there isn't a T-57 Heavy on... Well, actually, yeah, he was. The T-57 Heavy who was there. Or the Type 62 who's slightly above me on my right, which I'll have to turn my turret all the way round to, giving the T-57 Heavy the side of my turret in an easy penetration. So you've got to try and find those opportunities in this tank. Look for when you can support your allies. And effectively use their hit points, or hopefully their better armor, to be able to get opportunities, such as on this T-110E3. Jason makes a very good adjustment there at the last second to be able to take the tracks off this T-110E3. And this is just the light tank dream, boys. Shooting at the highest tier tank that you could possibly meet, the T-110E3, without a turret, unable to turn it around, and even if he was a T-110E4, he couldn't turn his vehicle around. He even uses a fire extinguisher, probably just as a final act of defiance, as Jason picks up another great shot into the back of that Tier 10 non-turreted American tank destroyer. What an impact that Jason is having in this game. I think that's his 3rd fire. But when you're shooting the sides and the rear of your enemy tanks, as much as this, with a high rate of fire on this 85mm gun, you do a lot of module damage. Perfect place so far here by Jason. He hasn't put a single foot wrong, really. He's played it perfectly. Let's see if he's going to manage to finish off this game. So, 6 minutes in, there's a T-110E3 left on the enemy team, another one, and a T-92. T-92 having the biggest gun on any vehicle in the game. And unfortunately for Jason, the T-110E3 is still on full hit points. But Jason does have the support of a GWE 100 back there, who hopefully will be able to manage to help him out. So Jason is going to support this Leopard prototype, who's distracting the T-110E3, who just takes a little bit of splash damage from the artillery, and try to get the rear again. Get a feel for the mobility of the Type 62 in this game as well. Fair enough, the kilometers an hour is broken in the bottom left-hand corner, but that's because this is an older replay. But the Type 62 hasn't changed since this replay, so what you're seeing is what you would get if you decided to pick one of these tanks up. So Jason unable to get through the lower plate of the T-110E3, and luckily he misses with that 155mm gun. Jason puts a good shot into the back of the T-110E3, trying to take the tracks off, but now he elects to just fire into the side. He didn't quite manage to get up behind. This is going to be awkward. Try and do it quickly. Oh my word, the T-110E3 fails to get through the armor of the Type 62. A miracle bounce there. Must have been off the mantlet, or maybe he hit the gun directly, probably one of the only chances he had. And the T-110E3 seems to have a good repair crew, or a plethora of repair cats available to him, as he manages to put his tracks back on quickly. But luckily, Jason went round the corner, fast indeed, and shuts down the T-92. So now, this is just a great opportunity for Jason, but unfortunately his artillery misses a sitting duck of a shot on that T-110E3. Now I like this play by Jason. He pretends to be going round one way, and then he doubles on round back. Is he going to manage to have tricked the T-110E3? Will he, will he, will he, will he? Yes, hook, line, and sinker. He has the back of the T-110E3. Nice play there. But Jason, where's this like calm play that you had earlier against the other T-110E3? I know that you've had a huge game so far, buddy. It's time to calm down. Just hit those tracks again. Hit those tracks again. You can do it. Take the tracks off. Okay, nice. Circle strafing. Good play. The T-110E3 looking like an absolute idiot right now. Beautiful. Takes the tracks off. But the T-110E3 puts the tracks back on again so darn quickly. Must have probably a toolkit and a full repair crew. Okay, great stuff. Jason still on full health. Even if the T-110E3 was able to turn his tank around, Jason should be able to take a shot, finish him off. Just one more, buddy. Here it is. Here's the last shot. Oh God, donks it. No, 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 no. Don't mess this up. Maybe you should just go in, just take a run up at him. Go cliff dive him. You can do it. Get a kamikaze medal at the end of the game and end this one in a fantastic way. Jason decides to take his chance. Oh my word, thank goodness that didn't hit or roll high. And he manages to finish off the T-110E3 at the end of the game. So we're going to put this final 1v1 situation just down to nerves, or maybe, Jason, you just wanted to add tension for the viewers? Possibly. You did get a little lucky there that the T-110E3 didn't penetrate you with his first shot, and you gave him an opportunity to, I don't know, get some kind of an ammo rack off you, or maybe just track you in front of him, or just roll high and finish you off. Remember, engine fires happen in this vehicle as well, and it doesn't look like you were using a fire extinguisher, so that was very risky at the end, but he who dares wins, I guess. And Jason managed to take down a huge round here. Jason, thanks for sending in this replay. It was completely awesome. One of the best light tank games I've ever seen, and should give the viewers a pretty good idea of what the Type 62 is capable of. So let's just take a very quick look at the post-game stats to see the earning potential of this Tier 7 Chinese premium light tank. What a result here. This might be one of the highest experiences I've ever seen for a 5x event. And oh my word, I just realized this wasn't even with a premium account. If Jason had been using a premium account, he would have got 20,000 experience for a single round during this 5x experience event. He picked up an All-X medal for destroying at least 3 enemy vehicles that were 2 tiers higher than him, and a high caliber medal as the only tier 7 tank in the game. What a result here. 6,400 damage, nearly doubling that of the next vehicle on his team, and doing 3 to 4 times more damage than most of the rest of the players, with 2,611 base experience points for his 6,400 damage. And it looks like the artillery on his team just didn't give a damn about all of the spotting that he did, only managing to get 200 detection points. Now, if Jason had been using a premium account, he would have made 100,000 credits profit. And that's why you play the Type 62, even though he didn't have a premium account and he fired quite a lot of heat rounds to be able to win this game, he still made 50,000 credits profit and got a whopping amount of experience for his crew training, or alternatively, being able to convert it off and use it to accelerate his progress in other areas. And this is why the Type 62 is special. While the WZ-131 is practically the same, but just more competitive, it can't even hope to get this kind of income with its economy. And remember, the Type 62 is a very proficient scout as well with its 390 meters base view range. And you do get rewarded for spotting, as we can see here, with a huge round by Utem, who was able to get 166,000 credits, as well as 5,200 experience for his double for his Scout and Patrol Duty medal for getting over 12,000 spotting damage on Prokhorovka. Economy-wise, this was 165,000 credits profit, as he barely had to fire any rounds. And when you're effectively spotting your enemies, you're also not getting shot as well. And so that's why people play the Type 62. Maybe it's not as special as when it was first introduced in 2012 as the second ever Chinese tank in the game. Or the fact that the WZ-131 is basically just a better Type 62. Or that there's also now the Type 64 in the game, a tier 6 Chinese premium, or the AMX 1357. It's because some people just love light tanks. And if you want to make a huge amount of credits and experience while still playing your light tanks, then look no further than the Type 62. And so hopefully you guys enjoyed this video, or maybe it was just useful to you. If it was, please consider giving it a like down below. It really helps the channel out. And let me know in the comments down below what you guys think about the Type 62, especially if you're an avid Type 62 driver. And as always, guys, thank you so much for watching. You've been epic, and hopefully I'll see you soon.